Mr. Roark. Now, a lot of students spend the money to get these big fancy graphing calculators, but most students only use them like one of these little calculators. They use them for multiplying, dividing, maybe taking a square root, and that's about it. So in this video I want to show you a few things that you can do with these big fancy calculators and actually put them to more of a use. Another useful feature of most scientific calculators is the ability to store a number as a letter. And this is very useful when you're using constants, something that is going to go in lots of different equations, and you don't want to have to keep typing it over and over again, especially if it's a really big number. For example, the speed of light, 3 times 10 to the 8th. So we're going to store that in for a letter so that I can just put the letter into a calculation. And we do that by making use of the store function, which is this button, STO, with a little arrow by it. So let's say we want to store the speed of light. So first we have to put in the speed of light, 3 e to the 8th. And I want to store that as a letter. So I'm going to push STO, and it puts an arrow on my calculator. Now I have to pick which letter I want. For constants, it's useful to use the letter that usually stands for it in an equation. So the speed of light is C. So we're going to put alpha to choose our alphabet, and then if we look for our alphabet, above the program button is our C. So if we put in the letter C there and hit enter, now it's going to, anytime it sees the letter C, it's going to put in that number, 300 million. So if I want to do a calculation where I divided a distance by the speed of light, let's say I take 5,000 meters and I want to divide by the speed of light, I can just go divided by alpha C, and it will put that number into the calculation in place of C. Now, because of course we have 26 letters, you have 26 different things that you can put in. Common things in a physics class, of course, the speed of light, also the universal gravitation constant for big G, which would be 6.67 times 10 to the negative 11th, and other useful things like that. I also tend to use that if I'm going to do a calculation or a problem that has a lot of steps. For example, if I need to find the acceleration of an object by looking at the forces, and I know I'm going to use that acceleration later to calculate the position of an object, when I'm done with my calculation, let's say I take a force of 98 newtons and I divide it by 3.26 kilograms, and I know I'm going to need that number later in another calculation, I'll just go ahead and store it as A. And so I'm going to store my answer as the number A so that later when I do a calculation to find maybe the position of the object or its velocity with some other information, I can just put in A and I don't have to remember what that number was, what that acceleration was, and I don't have to write it down. Now, of course, our calculator has a pi button so that you don't have to remember the digits of pi. It'll just put it in for you. But you have to be careful with how you use it. For example, let's say I want to take 3 and I'm going to divide that by 2 pi, so 2 times pi. If I put in 3 divided by 2, and then pi is above the exponent button here, so I have to hit second and caret, and I go 3 divided by 2 pi, I get 4.71. Well, that shouldn't be the right answer. We're taking and dividing by a number that should be bigger than 3. We should get a decimal here. The problem is the calculator rigidly does order of operation, and it is going to take 3 divided by 2 and then multiply by pi. So if I wanted to do 3 divided by 2 pi, I'm going to have to put in a parentheses. So to get the correct answer here, I would need to take 3 divided by, put parentheses, 2 pi. Make sure you put your closed parentheses. And what this will do is take 2 times pi first, and then take 3 and divide it by that. And we get the correct answer. So if you're ever doing calculations where you're dividing by pi, you just have to be careful if you're putting another number in there. Make sure you use your parentheses. If you have any other questions, I'll be happy to help you. Otherwise, I'll see you in class.